I have attempted to film this podcast episode way too many times. I actually lost count. And my issue is that I am trying to speak from a flow state, and that requires a certain level of trust and surrender, and I am getting in my own way. It's funny because in this topic that I want to talk about today, I want to talk about what it really means to live intuitively and how that is about surrendering and trusting your intuition over your logical mind, not dismissing your logical mind entirely, but letting your intuition sort of take the reins. And as I'm attempting to discuss this topic, I feel my logical brain just like pulling me to be careful of what I say because that is something that I have done for so long. And part of my healing journey with this podcast is the acceptance of my voice and trusting the words that I say as they leave my mouth instead of judging them. So it's just interesting how, as I am attempting to film this podcast and discuss what it really looks like to live intuitively, I am also real time experiencing the battle of what that can feel like sometimes, that tug and pull between your intuition and your logical mind, and attempting to or wanting so badly to follow the path of your intuition, but it's like sometimes that fear just holds you back. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I say all of this to say I'm going to attempt to again discuss this topic, but just to share that it's not easy and I'm still learning and I'm still figuring this out. And I'm so committed and dedicated to not letting myself be ruled by my fear, to not giving into the fear, to understanding that that has played a role in my life, that has served a purpose. And I'm ready to say you can be there, but I'm not going to let you run my life anymore. Just yesterday, actually, I was talking to my sister and I shared the first episode of my podcast with her. And she was asking me, what does it feel like? Like, what does it feel like to be on this journey, like committing to following your intuition? And I was explaining to her that to a degree, I feel limitless to a degree. I think we're still obviously we're still in process, we're still in progress, we're still figuring this out. But I was trying to say that to a degree I feel limitless because what it means to live intuitively is, on one hand, it means to follow the path of your intuition, right? So that is following the next step and the next step and the next step, and it's leading you down a specific path. And hopefully, that path is going in the direction of fulfillment and joy and your purpose and whatever else you are intending. But simultaneously, for me, from my perspective, it has also been this healing journey because when I set the intention that I want to live a full life, that I want to live my fullest potential, let me tell you, my fullest potential is not sitting within my comfort zone. And so, as I'm given the next step, maybe it's something easy, maybe it's something like, oh, go to this place, do this thing, talk to this person, like that's simple. But maybe sometimes it's like, hey, put yourself out there. Hey, be vulnerable. Hey, start this business that you feel passionate about. And those bigger things, that can feel scary. And so it's this simultaneous healing journey of, in order to take that next step, you have to confront the fears. You have to confront the limiting beliefs. And you have to face that head on and work through that. Instead of letting that stop you, instead of letting that hold you back, you look at the fear, you look at the limiting beliefs, and instead of letting that stop you, they become a reflection of an unhealed part of yourself that you are then given the opportunity to heal. And when you heal, you can move forward. To some degree, I want to say yes, when you heal, you can move forward. But also, it's like, it's not about healing entirely. I think when I was also starting this process, like especially with this podcast, that's a good example that I can give kind of simultaneously as I'm talking through this. When I first started this podcast, I thought, okay, I want to do this, but I have all of these fears and limiting beliefs. So let me eradicate these fears. Let me rewire these limiting beliefs, and then I'll be able to move forward. And somewhere along the process, I realized you don't have to get rid of them completely in order to move forward. You just have to minimize them to a point to be able to say, I'm going to do it anyways. It's okay. I feel the fear, and I'm going to do it anyways. To get to a point where the fears don't hold you back anymore. And when you start to tackle life that way, of following the next step and the next step and the next step, and to feel like the universe is supporting you in your path and providing you the resources and giving you the clues, dropping breadcrumbs, like that feels magical. And then to feel like every time you're coming up against an obstacle, a fear, again, a limiting belief, some unhealed part of you, you have the tools and the resources to be able to move through that. And then when you do, you come out this, I want to say a better version of you, but it's not a better version of you. It's just a version of you that's closer to the real, more authentic you, who is just like pure love. So I'll give the example of starting this podcast because I think that that is a real example of what it looks like what it truly looks like to walk an intuitive path. So, my journey to starting this podcast was actually several months long. Right around the time when I quit my job is when I started to feel, actually, I had like a drop of inspiration. It was this idea that came to me that I was really excited about. And it was this idea of, do you know, like on TikTok, you see all of those a day in the life videos? My idea was a day in my intuitively led life. And the goal was similar to this podcast. It was trying to demonstrate what it looks like to live intuitively in practice. Because again, like I said, in theory, it seems simple, but I think once you actually begin, it can feel a little bit more complex and layered. So I wanted to show like what does that actually look like in practice? And that felt important and I was excited. So when it came to me in this idea of TikTok, right? Like make TikTok videos that are a day in my intuitively life. And as I'm trying to figure out what this looks like, I can also be sharing that journey online and maybe it could help someone else. So after I quit my job, I started posting TikTok videos and I made it through 3 TikTok videos and I was immediately triggered. It was like these fears of being judged, these fears of being criticized, of being made fun of. And it was so overwhelming to me that I deleted all of the TikTok videos. I might have even deleted the account altogether. And I said, you know what? We're going to hit pause. Like, I still feel like this is important, but the way that it triggered me, I needed to work through that first before I started up again. And also, the platform, like specifically creating TikTok videos, that didn't really feel like something I was super excited about. It was more like I was feeling more stress of trying to maintain a specific cadence because I know that on TikTok, like a lot of the creators are creating videos on a daily basis, sometimes even multiple videos a day. And I was at home with my toddler and I just could not figure out how to do that. So it was causing me a lot of stress. So I said, okay, we're not giving up on this. We're going back to the drawing board, and I'm going to figure out if there's a different way that I can attempt to share my story. And also simultaneously, I need to work through all of these fears that I'm having. So I didn't give up on the intuitive nudge. I just said, let's tackle this from a different angle. So next, I actually attempted to write. I thought, okay, getting online, showing my face, that felt like maybe a little too overwhelming at the time. So I thought, it's okay. Maybe I will write and then I don't have to show my face. I don't have to, like, people don't even have to know that it's me. I get to share my story and maybe start a little bit slow, start in a way that's a little bit more comfortable within my comfort zone for me. So I actually sat down, I did write one blog post, and it felt really good to just like get it out there, just like let it out. I feel like I had so many thoughts bottled up. It was just like energy in my body, and to just let it out, pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. That just felt really good. So then the next day, I sat down when my son went down for a nap. I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write again. And it just felt like the last thing I wanted to do. There were like a million other things that I would have preferred to do at that during that time frame. I wasn't excited about the act of sitting down to write. So after that one blog post, I actually never wrote anything again. I thought, okay, that's fine. We're going to try a different method. And when someone said, Lisa, you should start a podcast, when I heard that, it was like almost like a duh moment for me because I have been an avid podcast listener for probably like the last 5 years. And so it just felt really natural to me like, yes, you should start a podcast because you love listening to podcasts. And also, before I decided to put this on video, I thought me talking into a microphone was kind of like a middle ground, like that felt still out of my comfort zone, but like not too far out of my comfort zone. It felt doable. And when I shared this with my husband, he bought me a microphone for Christmas. And when I started to sit down and actually practice speaking into it, it just lit me up. It was so exciting and fun. And we would both sit there playing with the microphone and just like talking into GarageBand. And it was fun. So I thought, okay, yes, I found a way to share my story that feels in alignment, that still feels like I'm following my highest excitement. And that took a little bit of maneuvering to figure out, how I can follow this next step that I'm getting in a way that feels good for me. Now, simultaneously, I was working through these fears and limiting beliefs that were coming up. So, this was actually something that I felt like I needed help with. And one of the main reasons, I mean, I joined this group mentorship program for many reasons. I felt like it was like a really good fit for me. But one of the things that they tackled was the fear of being seen. Actually, it's funny. I remember going on a walk and just like talking to the universe, talking to God, spirit guides, whoever was listening, and I was like, "You guys, I need help. Like I need some sort of mentor because I am just navigating this in the dark and I could really use some support." And I think it was later that night that I came across this mentorship program. I wasn't even looking for it. It just like happened upon it. And the sales page was something like, "Are you ready to be seen? And are you ready to step into your full power?" And I was like, no. Nope, not quite there yet. And so I actually put it off for a few weeks. I was like, there must be some other mentor out there for me. I don't think that was the right one. And a few weeks later, I did come to a place where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready now. I think I am. You know what it was actually? I'm like avoiding talking about it for some reason. Okay, so what it actually was I listened to an interview where someone was talking to an astrologer. And I have never really had much of an interest in astrology. Like, I've looked up my birth chart with my friends, unable to read it. I knew like my top three, my soon my sun, moon, and rising, triple water sign. And so I knew those things about myself, but I've never really had much of a curiosity around astrology. But when I was listening to this interview, and for context, I've listened to many interviews with astrologers in the past. Um, when I listened to this one, it was like it hit me that I needed a session with her. I needed her to read my birth chart. And I was like, oh, that's so odd because I've never really had any interest or curiosity around astrology. Maybe this is my intuition telling me to book a session. So I log on to her website and her sessions are incredibly expensive. And so I was like, maybe not. Maybe let me just look up. I've listened to a ton of other interviews with astrologers. Let me just look up and see if there are any others that catch my eye, or that seem like I might be interested in booking a session with them. And so I think I looked up like one of the top podcasts that I listened to and just looked up astrology. And the first thing to come up was an interview with the same girl that I was listening to in a completely different podcast interview. And I was like, oh, I've actually never heard this episode, but like clearly it's her, something about her. So I go back to her website and I see that she actually has like a long list of people who have studied under her who do sessions, and they do sessions at like a fifth of the price. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll just do that. And she had like a whole like matchmaking system. For context, this is the Deborah Silverman and her astrology method. So I was looking, and she does this whole matchmaking service where you like submit your birth chart information, and she'll match you with an astrologer who studied under her, who she feels is a fit for your specific birth chart or for your background, whatever. And she matched me with someone. I booked a session, and in that session, what she told me about my birth chart, I have done therapy in the past. And the way that this astrologer read me better than any therapist I've worked with could, it was like crazy. And again, I've never really been interested in astrology much, but after having that session, I was like, oh, wow, there is definitely something to this. And to just think, okay, this is a snapshot of the stars above your mom's head at the time of birth. And in my chart, it was like, Lisa, you are meant to walk this path, so stop running from it. And that is when I said, okay, I'm going to accept it. I'm going to stop running from it. And that night I went home and I signed up for the mentorship program because I said, you know what? I'm ready to be seen and I'm ready to step into my power. Took me a few weeks, but I finally said yes. Anyways, so I joined this mentorship program, and we do so much shadow work around the fear of being seen. And I was writing a lot of release letters, which is, for me, that entails a lot of automatic writing, whether that be to specific people or to, I want to say like concepts. Like I wrote a release letter to shame, actually. So I was writing a lot of release letters, and then I would burn them. I did a lot of writing throughout this process, just in general. A lot of energy work, a lot of energy healing. And I got to a place where I said, one, I feel more ready to be seen. It was like I got my nervous system to a place where this didn't feel overwhelming anymore. So I was able to minimize the fear, not completely remove it, but I was able to minimize it to a place that allowed me to move forward. And I was also, through that process, able to add a lot of tools to my toolkit to say, hey, when I am judged, when I am criticized, when I am made fun of, I know I have full trust in myself that I'm going to be okay because I now have the tools to be able to move through that. And that's what makes me feel limitless. Although I'm only at the beginning of this journey, and I mean, it was maybe only 6 months ago that I quit my job and like committed to this fully. And it was maybe less than 2 years of even learning to start to tune into my intuition and follow that. So I feel like I'm still very much at the beginning and still in the unfolding, obviously. But the strides that I have made in terms of acceptance of myself, acceptance of my voice, choosing to move in love and not fear. I just can't even begin to imagine what another 6 months will look like. And I think that's why I feel so passionate about this topic, about learning to trust and surrender and follow the path of your intuition. Because imagine if everyone was moving from a place of love in the direction of their purpose and feeling limitless, unstoppable. Like, where would we be? What would the status of our earth be? How would everyone feel? What would we all be able to accomplish? It's an interesting thing to think about. So, anyways, I finally got through this episode. And I think I did actually allow myself to speak mostly from a flow state with minimal interruptions from my logical mind. So, that's a win in my book. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.